I got to introduce Tim Tebow as a Florida Gator, introducing who is a role model to me, arguably the best Gator of all time. That was just exciting.
What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of Sideline Stories. Today, we are joined by Morgan Frazier. How are you doing today, Morgan?
I'm great. So excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
Anytime. Happy to have you on. Just to start, can you tell us what a highlight was from your gymnastics career at Florida?
Yes, I think the highlight, honestly, was being a part of the first ever NCAA Championship winning gymnastics team at UF. We won it my freshman year, so it was awesome to make history alongside all of my teammates. And not only that, we followed it up back to back the 3 years, my freshman through junior year. So it was a very special time to be a gymnast at UF.
Absolutely. And there's been a lot of legendary athletes that have gone through UF. After law school, you've been working at Student Athlete NIL. Can you talk a little bit about that agency and one highlight you've had since working there?
Yeah, definitely. So I've been there since this past September, almost a year now, and we are an agency of record on behalf of brands and NIL collectives as they enter into the NIL space. So we have a couple of different collectives right now. So Success with Honor at Penn State. We also have Knights of the Raritan, Rutgers, a couple other passive collectives at Florida, Loyola Marymount, San Diego State, to name a few. But yeah, it's, a typical NIL collective. We just like to say we do it better than everybody else because I'm bullish, but we do. We also just hosted the first ever NIL Summit in Atlanta. It was an awesome 3-day event where we had the NIL awards that recognize the top athletes, universities, brands, et cetera, in this space, followed up with a 2-day conference focused on educating these athletes on how to best monetize, grow and protect your brand. And it was really awesome to see these great connections that athletes are making with brands, but also with themselves. They've been filming some great content from it. It's giving me a lot of excitement for year 2 of the summit.
What's one thing from the NIL Summit that you'll never forget that was either a highlight for you personally or something that you didn't expect to happen and it occurred?
I mean, honestly, the highlight for me personally was I got to introduce Tim Tebow for his sessions. And as a Florida Gator, introducing who is a role model to me throughout college and arguably the best Gator of all time, that was just a huge thing, exciting. I usually don't get nervous speaking in public, but I'm not gonna lie, I was nervous. So that was really cool. But outside of that, one thing that honestly surprised me was how engaged these athletes are. The types of questions that they were asking, it truly blew me away because I was trying to put myself in their shoes. Like, I don't know if I was an athlete, if I'd even like think of these questions to ask. They're so intelligent and leaned in right now. And that to me was just so exciting to see.
Yeah. And I was going to say this question for later, but I think now is the best time to ask it. You were quoted in a Sports Illustrated article recently saying that going into year 2 of NIL, one of the major issues that we need to focus on is education for these student athletes. So I know you were just touching upon it and you saw firsthand how engaged some of these student athletes were at the summit. Can you just talk a little bit about how you think this problem can be solved and why this, issue of education is so vital and a driving force to taking the next step in the NIL era?
Oh, definitely. I mean, overnight athletes went from, you could risk your eligibility if you took a gift card to Chipotle to, and I don't want to say it, but I'm going to say it, the wild, wild west where no one knows what's going on. Athletes don't know really anything except for cool. Like, I can get money for doing promotions. I can get money for my NIL. And now, like, looking back, like, athletes throughout are like, we don't understand contracts. Like, no one prepares you for that. We don't know like these terms, what they mean. We don't know how to file our taxes. We don't know how much money that we should be saving per deal so that we can pay our taxes. When do you do it? But also it's the mental health aspect too, which I think plays an important part, even with the education and the resources. Like, you're a full-time athlete, you're a full-time student, and now it's that extra pressure of, oh crap, I have to be basically like a full-time influencer, or I can be a full-time influencer now. And how does that affect when you have so little time of the day to do everything, all these different pressures and voices in your head? So I think, we saw different companies come out and, giving these lectures, which are great, 1-hour lectures, very informative. Schools were partnering with certain organizations, but the education's lacking. I mean, you can't listen to a talk once, a semester and expect to retain the information. It needs to be constant quality education. I touched on it in the article, but at Florida, we took my freshman year, we had a 4-credit class, basically of what it meant to be a Florida Gator. You learned all the compliance rules. They touched upon best practices for athletics, but also like media training, things along those lines. But it helps you. Like, I didn't know the compliance, rules. I, wasn't great. Let's say, I was a high school athlete. Nutrition wasn't my thing. You eat whatever when you're a kid. So those classes to me were very helpful. And I think universities should adopt that same mindset and create a year-long, semester long, but it could be a year-long class for credit that deals with, hey, let's bring in some subject matter experts and let's walk through a contract. Let's learn how to negotiate. Let's bring in, CPAs. Let's go through taxes, learn how to file them, but also the fun stuff. Once you get all the less sexy education, contracts, finance out of the way first semester, second semester, let's bring in some brand builders. Let's talk about Instagram, bring in Nick Marquez. Let's do deep dives onto Instagram, learn the creator tools, learn how to effectively utilize Twitter, LinkedIn for these job opportunities. There needs to be constant quality education, and that's not what we're seeing now.
And I think something you mentioned that really struck me is there's definitely a mental health aspect to this. Student athletes already feel like they have a certain amount of pressure on them to perform in their sport, but now there's this pressure of, they might see it as an opportunity they're missing out on if they can't keep up to date with being basically a full-time influencer. So I think that that's something that I hadn't thought about before.
But also like the trolls, like you think about it, let's say you post a video and then your team loses, you post an endorsement deal, and you think of those trolls are to say, well, maybe if you were focused on your sport. So now it's just another layer of different voices coming at you. And unfortunately, there's not enough resources out there for athletes to get the help that they need.
And another thing that you said that really resonated with me is the idea of, balancing and having it be an all-inclusive approach, not just helping with the finances and the taxes, but also on the other side. How do I build my personal brand? How do I, find an audience that suits me really well? And I think someone else in the article was talking a little bit about this, like, if you don't actually know the athlete and their personality and their audience, and you just throw them a product and hope that since they have 50 or 100K followers on TikTok or on Instagram, it's going to do well, like, you're not doing your due diligence. So a lot of it comes down to the best fit for athletes and brands. And I think that's something we're learning from year one. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm saying like athletes too, like they need to figure out who they are as a person and not just jump on every single thing that's thrown your way. Figure out, how can I utilize NIL to help me in my future career, to get me into grad school, to get that internship, which is, was a bit overlooked in year one. I think that'll become more of a focus for year two. But yeah, brands too, they need to get smart. They need to get to know the kid, or else they won't get their ROI.
At this time, the floor is yours. If you want to add anything that we missed, plug where people can follow you along on your journey.
Yeah, thanks. I'll say definitely follow me at Instagram, Twitter at S Morgan Frazier. Hopefully you'll like what you see, but make sure to follow along. Also, don't be shy. Feel free to slide into my DMs. I'll answer any questions you have, and hopefully I can, help you out in your journey.
100%. Morgan, thank you for taking the time today. I learned a lot. Hopefully you learned a thing or two, and hopefully all the viewers who tuned in also learned a great deal. We really appreciate you taking the time, and we look forward to seeing where you go next on your journey.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.